afternoon, everybody. How are y'all today? Welcome to the Living Heritage Museum. I'm the director, Brett King. Today, we're going to be doing a History for Lunch on the Old Federal Road. Jim Swayne, born native Etowah, born and raised. He said I was talking to him earlier. He said he fell into history in a roundabout way from scuba diving. You'll probably talk more about it. But so thank you everybody for coming here, and thank you for all of your support. I'll just do my little pitch at the beginning. The museum couldn't operate without our members and supporters like you. So if you haven't already decided to sign up as a member, I would appreciate if you at least consider it if you decide to support the museum so we can continue to put on these free programs for the community. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Jim Swayne.
I'm going to try to go through this fairly quick. The amount of information that you see in that book over there on the far right is just compiling of research that I've done over time. My grandfather and I got started on this back in the 1990s. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself first. I'll make that quick. As Brent said, I'm a 62-year native of Etowah. My parents are sitting right back there, Doug and Shirley Swayne, and they've been there for a long time. So if you know Etowah people, you'll probably run across us somewhere along the line. I have 2 children. My wife and I were high school sweethearts. We both graduated from Central High School. We keep going like we are. Next month, on the 19th, we'll have been married for 43 years. So if she doesn't hit me over the head or anything from that point. I've got 5 granddaughters. Just returned back from Pennsylvania to see the oldest one graduate from high school, and love them to death. You gotta love granddaughter. And just kind of give you another little bit of an idea. I'm retired from Johns Manville. I was lucky enough after high school to land a job there. Worked there for 36 years and Blocker Chemical for 4 years. And so I've had a lot of industry background. So what you're hearing today on anything I say, I don't hold a PhD in history. It's all just been self-learning and teaching and reading from other people's writings. So you'll see a little bit of that today. As Brent said, I'll probably run into a little bit of scuba diving stories from time to time, but that's how I started researching a lot of things. I started diving the rivers, lakes in Tennessee, and to do that, you want to find something. And so what you do, you go to the libraries, courthouses, places like that to research the areas. And what I ended up doing is pretty much finding places along the Old Federal Road. Not knowing at the time, I was on swing shift, and so I was able to bring all that stuff and talk to my grandfather. My grandfather and I had an excellent relationship. Being on swing shift, I spent a lot of time with him. So I'd drop off, and he would say, "Tell me about your day," and I'd tell him about my scuba diving ventures and what I've researched and learned. So I'd leave him a copy. And so he starts thinking through, okay, well, some of these things have a lot of, have one commonality, and a lot of it was focused around this road. So let me, if I get, well, I'm going the wrong way here. There we go. I've had some copies run off thanks to the Heritage Museum, and I appreciate you guys having me here. I haven't done this in 20 years, so I might be a little bit slow on some of it. But if you'll see the map right there, this was done by my uncle, Mike Jaquish. He's an Athens native to some degree, I guess. And the way this come about, and there'll be copies up here if you guys want to take one with you, and the GPS coordinates. So everywhere I went, I used a Garmin 18 GPS to mark those coordinates. And so you can take one of those with you if you're ever out and you're good at those coordinates and everything. You can find your way around on this road. So you'll see those. There's about 60-something different waypoints. I've highlighted one of them here. We'll talk about here in just a little bit, and that's McMillan grave along Highway 411. So this is my grandfather. The way we started this, we would always take some ventures out to different places. Our concentration was on the eastern section of the Old Federal Road. And you'll see a little bit more why I say that here in just a little bit. But in Georgia, you can see these signs on the Old Federal Road all over the place. They've documented it very well. However, in Tennessee, not so much. I think I remember seeing one, maybe two signs. So since my historical research, we were able to secure a Tennessee historical sign, and you'll see that here in just a little bit off of Highway 30, close to the community center. So you can read all about it. In 1993, I wrote a letter to Congressman Duncan at the time, asking for information on the treaties with the Cherokee. If you look up at the top left-hand margin, it's dated 1994, so it's more of a fax machine type of thing. So there's treaties of 1803, 1805, 1806, and so far on down the line. And you'll recognize some of the names. Returned Jonathan Meigs for the federal government. Doublehead, Chief Doublehead over in the right-hand margin. See if I can do my pointer right over in here if you get looking for his name. Some of those names may not mean much to you, but what this document did was said, okay, we want to get a mail route through Tennessee and Georgia through the Cherokee lands. So you might think of it as Old Federal Road, Georgia to Tennessee, but it continued on out various different ways. Purpose was carrying the mail from Knoxville, Tennessee to New Orleans. Another area hits the Tombigbee River. So why I'm saying that is because a lot of people say, well, that I've talked to, well, Old Federal Road runs over here. Old Federal Road runs over here. They're not wrong, because it could be a situation where, depending on external from my route, there could be another one. We do know that it split in Ramhurst, Georgia, and went two ways. One went up towards Knoxville, the other on the western side from Spring Place, Georgia, and up through Chattanooga to Nashville, or you'll hear Stones River as an example. Sometimes I'll forget to look at my notes, so I might backtrack just a little bit. How did I start looking through some of these things? Various maps. The 1832 Matthew Ray map, my grandfather had a collection of 1940s and maybe a 39, 35 map of TVA. He was a forest ranger. And so I didn't bring any of those with me, but he had a lot of old maps, and we marked it up to trace the Old Federal Road from one end to the other. I used court records, deed records, road commissioner books, and I'll talk about that just a little bit more here in a minute. Messages from the governors, papers from the presidents, and this road goes all the way back to the idea and the concept of getting that mail route from President Thomas Jefferson era, John Sevier. You'll see his name mentioned in some of these. Census records. If you're a historical research person, you know that's probably one of your biggest things if you're trying to follow through and find some of your family genealogy. The road commissioner books, if I can use that pointer right here. That's a little known piece of information that'll really hit home to folks that if you're into genealogy, you'll pay attention to that here in just a few minutes, because it lists a lot of names You think, well, there's my great-great-great-grandfather's name on that. What that meant is he worked on the road. So we'll discuss that here in just a minute. Census records diaries, another great area. You know, if you're accustomed to reading the Bible, you're looking at somebody that knew Jesus and wrote about it, right? So in the same way, in the diaries, we're looking at John Williamson, 1850s, William Sloan during the Civil War era, and Abram Steiner. Abram Steiner was one of the Moravian missionaries, and his diary documents coming from Pennsylvania through Knoxville. Knoxville, he ends up meeting John Hildebrand down in Polk County. So imagine trying to get from there all the way south. And their mission was to spread the word of Jesus Christ and Christianity. So you'll see a lot of information through documentations, and you'll get to some pictures here in just a few minutes, I promise. But some of the things about the road commissioner books. Workers that were working on the road were exempt from the poll tax. Overseers and workers' names are listed, and you can see some of those as examples. What I've done is took those road commissioner books, the information that I had, and made copies and listed those out the best I could read. Penalties, they were enforced if roads and bridges were in disarray. And so if you think about what kind of penalty could there be, not too bad, $5, right? We'll spend that at McDonald's, easy. Back then, it was pretty stiff. So there was situations where if the bridge was out of repair, if the sign at the forks in the road was not there, $5. So the overseers were people that were responsible for their section of the road. And so they probably stayed on it pretty tight. So where'd the Old Federal Road name come from? If you look through that treaty, you won't see Old Federal Road. So like a lot of us that grew up here, you might see, well, hey, if you were given directions, we'll go down to Abe Starkey's place down here, you know, or you might have a road to Columbus, Tennessee. We'll just take the Columbus Road, take the Tennessee-Georgia Road. So that's how we come up with the Old Federal Road, really. The federal government put it together, and between the Cherokee Indians and the state of Tennessee or Georgia, their folks that they deemed they had to get together and find the most convenient way to get from one place to the other. Geometry tells us the shortest direct distance between, 2 points, straight line. Well, they didn't have that much dynamite, so you might see it veer just a little bit around high places, but pretty much they had to stay on the high places. And the reason for that, I'll give you an example. The town of Etowah. Of course, Etowah wasn't there at the time, right? When the railroad came in to build up Etowah, they had to raise it 3 foot. So it was just more of a swampland. So what you'll see on the right side, or the east side of the railroad tracks, and I'll digress here just a little bit, is McCroskey Highway. Old Federal Road actually went on the west side. So there's a passageway that takes the high ground over in that area. Let's see, penalties. Some people were exempt from working on the road. I've got one example from Mr. George Taylor back in 1855, and he sustained some injuries in the wars, and so they exempted him from working on the road. Here's another road hand bit of information. You'll see at the top, highlighted there, it says Old Federal Road, Old Federal, and it'll give how much the class of road, like it's class 2 or class 3, The distance in the width varied from like 14 foot minimum to 20 foot maximum. So you'll see here's a list of people that actually worked on that road. And down below here, the reason I put this one in, well, boy, now I just messed it up. Let's see. There we go. You know, there's only 4 buttons on this thing. It ought to be pretty easy, right? I think I hit 2 at the same time. I didn't know what to do. But the list down here, you'll see it says Chestatouille Baptist Church. So these books kind of give you an idea of, okay, what's along this road? Who worked on or maybe lived along this road? So that's why it's so important for genealogists. If you start searching out, try to find these books. I know they were at the basement of the courthouse when I was looking way back in the day. So what I focused on was just anything to do with Old Federal Road, Columbus Road, Georgia Road, you know, something along that line. But there's a vast more out there. So I just kind of give you a little bit of an idea. That was Monroe County. Here's your one for MCMINN County, James Cobb. I have seen some car locks in there a little bit. And you'll see Old Federal Road. This is 1879. And it tells you forks of the road near Alex Green's. Down below, it doesn't list the people that worked on it, but it just says the same hands that James B. Lewis had as overseer. So you have to go back a little bit and find it. All right, who did James B. Lewis have? But most likely it's out there. So that just gives you a little bit of an idea. These road commissioner books, I just stumbled upon them, really. You know, it's, I just like to get the word out there, so if anybody's out researching or anything, you know, don't think outside the box and look outside the box. You know, we know about census records, tax records, and things of that nature. Keep your eyes peeled. So we started searching the 3 counties, Polk, Monroe, and MCMINN, and it kind of goes right along with the Overhill group in tourism. So how the road was built and maintained, this is kind of repetitive here, but groups were selected from the Cherokees in the state of Tennessee to lay out the road, maintained by paid road hands, or you didn't have to pay the poll tax, so to speak. So how important is the road? You want to get your mail. Yeah, everybody wants to get the mail. But see my bottom line down there. Think about how important it is to get your letters, your checks, Amazon orders. You got to see that stuff delivered, right? So think about that, how important it was. Then it progresses to, okay, if you're a farmer, you want to get your stuff to the mill, you want to get on that road. So you can see how important that is. David McNair, Captain David McNair's grave, we'll see on the first stop, coming from Georgia, and I'm working my way from south to north, okay, on Highway 411. He had a ferry, a mill, a portage. So he had a lot of information, a lot of stuff on his land. So he was in a very good position. Another thing is that he was also married to a Van family. Now, if you know the Van family, if you head Georgia into, well, I'll think of it here in just a minute.
Chatsworth.
The town Chatsworth. Bingo. Yeah. The Van family were very popular there, and once again, they had the ferry, the mill, and portage. One of the most important books that I read was just a small book that was just Retracing the Old Federal Road by John Goff. He was a Emory University professor. Wrote this by tracing the west section from Georgia at Ramhurst, all the way up through the Chattanooga and Nashville area. He didn't talk so much about the east side, but he concentrated mainly on Georgia. Let's go on down to next one. Okay, here's David McNair's grave site. It's about 10 to 20 yards from Highway 411 before you get into Georgia. Georgia has, at Tenga is where the sign is that you saw a little bit earlier where my grandfather was at. I always took him to these places of interest, and I would mark them on the GPS. So that's where you'll see that. On that highlighted one is where this is located. Continuing on northward on 411, some of you may recognize this as Fort Marr. And funny thing about it, when I took this picture, it was in Benton. That thing's been relocated about 5 different times, or maybe more, I don't know. And currently, it resides in G Creek Campground up in Delta. So I guess we got it on this side of the river just a little. How that happened, I have no idea. I'm sure there's nothing on that original, but keeping the same footprint and the way the logs are hewn and took care of right there, you know, really brings a lot of historical significance. And the reason I got a picture of this one, it's the original spot of it. We'll get to here in just a minute on a map. So we have a replica. Originally, it was like 1838. It's one of the maps that we have that shows where Fort Morrow actually was. And it's moved to Benton, now resides in G Creek Campground. So this is General Winfield Scott's map area, and you can see a lot of the forts dotting along Georgia, Alabama, and then right up top as you cross into Tennessee. So if you look at, hope you can see that little green circle where I'm at there, that's Fort Morrow, or Fort Marr. Another little area is, let's see, Spring Place right here. So Spring Place area is where the Vans family was at. And then going across into Tennessee, you have the McNairs. So that kind of gives you a little bit of how far back some of this is. You know, when you think about, okay, 1803, 1805, and then actually start seeing the roads that actually how they come together and where they were trying to reach to. Forts were a big thing. You know, you wanted the military to move at their pace. So you think about it as a mail route and delivery. What are you delivering? Well, letters, yeah. But it makes it a little bit easier for you moving your troops as well. So this is in Polk County, Tennessee. We talk a little bit about the town of Columbus and the Columbus Cemetery. Columbus was the McMinn County in 1823, became county seat of Polk County in 1839-40. In 1855, here's another very good history documentation in the Acts of Tennessee for what our legislature does. In 1855, it repealed the corporate existence as a town of Columbus. So you don't see that anymore. It won't be on a map unless you go back to like Matthew Ray's map, 1832. So it's gone. But it stated that a person couldn't fence the old federal road. In other words, you couldn't keep people from crossing through the old federal road and making their way down in the south end. Another little thing that's down in the Polk County area, John Hilburn's Mill site location. We'll see that here in just a minute. Before I get to that, I want to tell you a little bit about the town of Columbus. Couldn't find it. Supposedly in some of the newspaper articles and all, there was a vast amount of people buried in their cemetery. Well, my grandfather and I went off looking at an old TBA map. It's all a little cross on there. Typically that'll mean church or cemetery. So I checked with Mr. Clint here. I don't recall the name of the Davis family that I asked permission. It might have been John, I think, but I asked permission to go on their land. They said, as long as you close the cattle gate. That's fine. So we drove through the cattle gate, closed the cattle gate, drove across the land, and tried to find any remnants of any foundation or anything. So we were standing off in the distance at Fence Row, and looking back, you could see the change in the land. There was a spot that was real more luscious green, so to speak, had some trees in it. It just looked different instead of a pasture field. So we drove back around that area, and you could tell this stone is in pretty good shape, but everything was turned over. So I was able to erect it back up and found out it was Colonel Henry Bradford, 1776 to 1821. Lived a pretty good long life there. So I made note of who this is. Another person was Stanwick's Horde and Bradford's wife, I guess. So the stones, some of them were kind of cracked a little bit. But the good news, this was on day one. I had to find somebody that knew something about the town of Columbus. So I go to this young lady right here. It's Miss Reba Boyer. If you've been in libraries and you look through books, you'll see her name on a lot of things that she transcribed. So I found out where she lived, went over and knocked on her door on the way back. My grandfather was still sitting in the vehicle. And I started talking to her about it. She said, I don't know that I can find the town of Columbus anymore. I said, well, do you recognize these names? And I showed her the names. She said, yeah, those folks lived around in that area. I said, well, we just come back from there. She said, well, what are you doing tomorrow? Well, I got to work, but my grandfather is available, I'm sure. And so, long story short, she had a family flying in from California. I don't think my dad knows about this story, but the family was looking for Bradfords. And so she went out with my grandfather and this family. They flew in the next day out of California. See how ironic this thing is. Good story. And so they took the family out, showed them the gravesite. Between the family and the owners of the land, I don't have a picture of this readily available, but they have since took care of the tombstones, whitewashed them and made them look nice, fenced the area in to keep cattle out and all. And so it's sitting out there in the middle of a field. But to this day, I can go back and find it. It's not a big deal, and then that's another reason for putting these GPS coordinates on. So it's easy to find. They went back, got all this stuff done, and the family wrote a letter to my grandfather and sent this picture. So thought you might like that one just a little bit. Still in Polk County. I'm gonna move it on just a little bit because I think I only got an hour. Yep. Gonna have to move just a little bit faster. The Hildebrand Mill. On the treaty, the various treaties that I was talking to you about, some of the things that in trade-off for this road, yeah, you had a little bit of money, but one of the things that Cherokee wanted was a mill built down in that area. So John Hildebrand was the person that was responsible for building the mill. There's still remnants of that today. And how do I know this? Well, Not only did we find this along the Old Federal Road, or Columbus Road, what you're looking at right now, there's another book, it's titled Robert Armstrong Survey Maps of this area. 640 acres, John Hildebrand owned it. The mill site is along the Conasauga Creek before it empties into the Hiawassee River. So it's real easy to find. I'm gonna do a side note here just a little bit. One of the scuba diving deals I went in through the Hiawassee River, and where that water, where the Conasauga Creek water empties into the Hiawassee, you can't see this far in front of you. This is a piece of millstone that I brought up from there. So if you get a chance, you want to take a look at that, feel free to do so. It'll eventually end up probably in Polk County's historical group, because they have an old cabinet there from Columbus, I believe. So thought that would be fitting to donate that to them. Now let's slide on up into McMinn County just a little bit. We'll go into Cantor's Crossroads in 1838. Some people may remember that. Not that you're that old, but you may remember hearing the name Cantor's Crossroads. So through all the research, we were able to erect one new sign for the Old Federal Road. So if you are traveling from Athens or anywhere on Highway 30, and you get to the community center, which used to be K.C. Robertson's warehouse, I guess, really, you'll see that sign erected there, and it talks about Cantor's Crossroads being a short distance away out, really. If you go back behind the Star Regional Hospital, you'll be in an area known as Grady back during the day, Williamsburg back during the day, and Cantor's Crossroads. So how do we know this information? There's another book in the library. It's called Postmaster's book, and it'll tell you where these towns were when they started out as post office, when it closed down, when it changed to a new name. So you'll see me interchange those names a little bit from time to time. And the census records I told you about a little bit earlier. If you look at the 1920 census, at least Polk County, McMinn County, if you look over in the left-hand margin, you'll see the name of the road that people were living on at the time. So I found two of them, that Polk County and McMinn County, it says Old Federal Road over in that side. Doug Tulloch's home had been renovated. Previous owner was James Williams. James Williams was postmaster general back during those days. There's a picture of the sign that you'll see on Highway 30. I can't remember if it's 2014 or so, whenever it was put together. So this is out of the research that I did. You had to apply for this, and the Tennessee Historical Commission, the state, looked through it, okayed it, rechecked my references and everything, and was able to see that got erected. Here's an example of the census records. Look over into the side right here. See if I can get that pointer going right over here. It says Old Federal Road. And you can see the list of people that the census taker took a look at, documented their names. That's in 1920s. There's a picture of Doug Tulloch's house. Back behind him is Williamsburg Cemetery. And one of the oldest grave markers right here, you'll see down below here, is Thomas Cantrell. So it's a Revolutionary War veteran buried there. I think the Boy Scouts, there may be some other folks that take care of this graveyard, but they do an excellent job. It's pretty easy to find. If you're heading to the side of of Doug's house, on the left side, you'll come across the cemetery. The right side, I won't call it the right side, but the far side is where we believe the Old Federal Road actually ran and went up by the cemetery and on into Mary Jane Murphy's house towards the end of the road there. You can still go out there at the end and see where the Old Federal Road had went at one time. All right, let's see, let's go into Monroe County. Boy, I hadn't looked at any of this stuff. Let's see. I got my cheat notes. Let me see if I can catch up on myself here just real quick. Some of the things that you'll see in the documentation is when somebody's describing the road, they may use Old Federal Road as a name. And they may use, depending on where you're at, let's say if you're in Monroe County at, I don't know, Madisonville, and you were trying to tell somebody how to get to down to Polk County, well, you take the old Columbus Road. So there's some confusion sometimes when you got to put yourself in the position of who the person was and where they were riding from. And they may use Old Federal Road, they may not. The Columbus Road also, there's a branch that connected from Columbus, town of Columbus, to Athens. I haven't researched that one, but it's out there. So whether it's a federally done Old Federal Road, highly possible. You know, I'm gonna leave that up to somebody else, maybe a little bit younger that might be able to want to research that. I've come across 3 Old Federal Roads. There was another one, Andrew Jackson had some hand in getting to Alabama, and I didn't follow that one through, but it's out there and on maps. A few of the high points in Monroe County, Cothart School, Whole Store, Torbett Store, is an 1882 postal stop, Ross Jewell Farmhouse. This burned in 1995. My grandfather was able to get a picture of it, so I have that information from what that is. And there's some discrepancy on whether people believe this or not, I guess, but it was in the Democrat paper at Monroe County, and they were talking about how it was the first meeting place on Ross Jewell Farm to discuss courthouse business. So in a way, they said, well, that's the first courthouse in Monroe County. I can't discredit that. I can't argue it one way or another. But we got a picture of it, and it's very close to the Old Federal Road. The Telco Blockhouse, if you're heading up towards Fort Loudon area, as you cross the Little Tennessee River, look over to your right and you'll see a sign that says Telco Blockhouse. I encourage you to visit. There's not much anything there. Historical sign and the remnants of the base. So it's a good little visit, and I'd encourage anybody that's looking through the Old Federal Road. You'll see that I have pinpointed a lot of little museums and stuff to visit along the way. So it's not just a boring route that, okay, well, it's a mail route, but along that route, you can make a day, maybe even a 2-day if you want to, and see some of these areas. Yeah, focus on the Old Federal Road, but you can see museums and things of that nature along the way. So if you're heading into Monroe County, I'd encourage you to hit Fort Loudon, Sequoia Birthplace Museum.
Sir, I'm sorry to interject, but they recently built a replica of the Telco Blockhouse in the last several years. So they do have a blockhouse there.
I probably should have started out. I'm probably not going to be able to hear anything that you say. I've got 2 hearing aids in, but if you'll hold your questions, you got questions. But if you want to make a statement, I'll come a little closer.
Sir, they built a replica of that Telco Blockhouse in the last couple of years. So they
Oh,
do
really?
have a blockhouse stand.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Well, that tells you a little bit how long it's been since I've been out there.
Just the
Before, it
last
was just
year.
like the foundation.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
It's
good to know.
brand new.
That's great, that's great. But, you know, seeing something like that come about, you know, and I appreciate you sharing that. There was some more information about a road leading from Calhoun to Kingston. If you're ever up in Kingston, there's another renovated fort up there. I haven't been through it, just bought the books from their gift shop. But Fort Loudon, it's another good visit. I'd like to take my granddaughters, bring it back over to the microphone. So there's plenty of places to stop. Some of these, like Torbett's, you won't see a spot there, really. Cothorpe School, I believe, is still there. I've got a picture of it here. If you're coming from Etowah and you go on the road back behind Central, you're on the Old Federal Road. So continue with that road going into what we call Nonnyburg out there. Continue on straight. It's pretty much like a straight and narrow place. You'll see old Cohart School house there. The only other sign that I found I could get a good picture of here in Tennessee is this one here in Monroe County. And this was what it looked like back when I was taking pictures. So they built a replica on that. That's great. That's great. So that makes me want to go back up there and take another look. So what about the Telco Blockhouse? That's where it all started. Every bit of it. I know I took you from the south end to the north, but this is where the treaties were signed. Right here. So when you think about it, put yourself in the shoes of the Moravian missionaries that came from Pennsylvania to Knoxville, visited here at the Blockhouse. Take a good rest, and you're heading south. You're trying to get to the Cherokee Nation. Well, Old Federal Road wasn't there yet. So they may have been starting to build some of it and all. So however long it took them to travel from here, however many times they stopped to get down to Polk County, in their diary, they talk about dropping by to see John Hildebrand. He wasn't there at the beginning. He was going to get millstones in Knoxville. So somewhere along the line, they actually met up. But that gives you a little bit of an idea. When you think about driving it, yeah, you can get from there. We did it the other morning, driving from the airport. Go by there, stop down in Etowah. Wouldn't have been nothing to continue on down into Polk County. But that's driving at 55 miles an hour. So these guys, I'm sure they had a hard road. So that'd be a picture of the sign if it's still the same way, but it kind of gets you over into that area, and that's where they started out at. The reason that we started this, and I know it's been a while since I've done a talk. It's been, I think it's 2006 maybe, when I did one to MCMINN County. So it's been a little while. But my focus is, number one, get a sign erected, which I think we can mark it off the list. The other thing is to call attention to Old Federal Road, because when you think about it, most people are familiar with the Natchez Trace, Trail to Tears, Unicoy Turnpike, some of those places, and they'll ring a bell. Not many people think about the Old Federal Road. Old Federal Road predates the Trail of Tears. But the way I look at it, when you think about the way your mail is delivered, you know, they're stopping everywhere nowadays. So back in that day, if you weren't on that Old Federal Road, you had to travel in to somewhere to get your mail, or you had to travel in if you were going to the store. So this is kind of to bring notoriety to the Old Federal Road. The same way as I look at it, like the Trail of Tears, and I have a little bit different view on that than most people do, but I guess if you left your home back during the Trail of Tears, that's a start. That's a start. And I know there's main arteries and all that stuff, but you know, when you leave your hometown, your home place, whether forced or by agreement, you know, it's Trail of Tears. Old Federal Road, when you look at it from your mailbox, you know, to the post service, they're delivering. They're delivering. Back in those days, it was very, very tough. But we can look back and be thankful that there was an agreement between the Cherokee Nation and our federal government to where they could work this out and help get us mail or a little bit easier access to the south. How hard is it to preserve sites located along Federal Road? About like the Columbus Cemetery, some of those gravestones, they may be buried. As most gravestones, they weather quite a bit. You can see some out in front of the churches, you know, where you lose them sooner or later. And I can remember back doing one at Pleasant Grove where they were made out of concrete and the writings were about to disappear. So we raised some funds to get new markers put up. So how this comes about, you know, in the future, I don't know. I think marking it is one good step. Just calling attention to some of these important places, I think, is another. So I had a few extra slides in. Here's another slide from Georgia at Spring Place on the western section. The Van house I'll talk to you about. James Van, his son was Joseph Van. The McNair family that we started out with married into the Van family. And if you look at that house there, it's another, if you're heading to Georgia, it's another good reason to stop by and see some of these places. You notice the look of the house is like federal style architecture. And I think back about James Williamson or Doug Tulloch's house in Etowah. So much similarities. So that kind of give you an age back of how old those houses were in the federal style architecture. In this house, if you visit and go up the stairwell, you can see burnt marks in the floor where they tried to actually burn them out to send them out on the Trail of Tears. So I encourage you to try to visit some of these places. Another place I didn't talk about in Polk County is Nancy Ward's grave site. It's changed a lot since this picture, but you know, it's back before they did the little offshoot around, straighten the road out, I guess, a little bit. That's kind of off the beaten path now, but she actually owned an inn along the Old Federal Road. So that's documented in 2 different places. If you're familiar with the Leaves from the Family Tree book, you'll see remnants of that inn. Now I don't know where it's at, I'll tell you. The only person that said he knew where it was a man by the name of Frank Lowry. I got to talk to him a little bit. We never did meet up to where he could say, yeah, this is where it is. So that was one of the things lost, but there's a picture of it. And you know, you think about how all these people, these names tie together. And you know, some of them are they have a lot of notoriety because of what they did in the past. But I think one of the things that links a lot of these is that passageway, the Old Federal Road. So that's pretty much my discussion. I'll be around here for a little while and take some questions. You're welcome to look through some of these items up here. We've got some printouts for the map and the coordinates if you want to take one of those with you. I'll talk to you about the millstone a little bit. The broadhead axe over here I found along a piece of the Old Federal Road. how old it is or anything, I have no idea. But another thing that Doug Tullock, when he was alive, and I went and talked to him about the road, he had a set of U.S. cavalry chains that he had found out on his land. And so I got a picture of those. And, you know, there's probably so much history if you go up that route, just about like anything else. And there's probably so much more to explore over time. And the book on the far right, your right, is probably just a small sampling of a lot of the research that I've done over the years. I couldn't bring my file cabinets, but that one was a little bit easier to maneuver and hand in. The book you'll see right here, small book, is Tennessee Historical Marker book. It's an older book, so you'll see some Old Federal Road, some various places that were marked along the way. In the center is one of my first transcripts in 2004. I'm probably up to revision 44 and I've stopped. Okay, enough's enough. So I hope to actually get that printed out. I'm going to try to start concentrating on that a little bit more in my retirement time. So perhaps I can get something published to where all this stuff can be out there, where people can take the ball and run with it, so to speak. So that's all I have, guys. Anybody got a question or two?
Yeah, did that road terminate at Uachota or did it terminate Augusta, Milledgeville?
Say again.
Did that road terminate in Milledgeville or in Uachota?
There's, you're talking about the old map.
I mean, yeah, did it go down
I think
to
some of
Augusta?
those old maps, in my opinion, are skewed a little bit because the 1832 map, Matthew Ray, when you look at it, it's shifted some, but the name of the towns that hit up on the west side, you'll see like Tate, Talking Rock, Ramhurst. So if you follow that and then find out where Utah actually is on a more recent map, it'll probably give you more of an idea. Spring Place, and then go on up into western section of Chattanooga on into Nashville. No, that's a long way around answering your question, but I'd probably have to see that. I could probably look it up for you if you got my email address and everything.
All the way down to Augusta, Georgia? I mean, Augusta?
Yeah, Augusta, Georgia, and then they try to get to Athens, Georgia. As I said a little bit earlier, New Orleans, and you think, how are they getting to some of these places? Let me step back over here just a minute. So when you think about the Old Federal Road as a vehicular road or horse-drawn road or whatever the case may be, keep in mind some of these places, you got rivers. So you'll see a section over here that I've kind of quartered off. There was a section, about 11-mile section of Old Federal Road, to where when people brought their cattle or anything else down by river, that's where your portages come in. And so there was a time, I think Joseph McMinn talked about it as governor, but before he became governor, he was a commissioner. And they were looking at opening up an 11-mile stretch of a canal to connect Hiwassee and Conshohocken River. And so that never developed. But in the 1832 map, if you look at Matthew Ray's map, you can see where that was outlined. And they have proposed canal proposal. So keep that in mind that, yeah, we talk mostly about the federal road, but waterways were very important back then. So you had to get to that road from wherever you were at. So that's why, like the McNair's Portage, the Van's Portage, Hildebrand had a port. So all those areas were places where they would unload. And I guess one of my walks along the McNair's grave area, went down and there was probably an old pole that probably at one time used to be a tree. I think the thing was probably about 50, 60 foot long, and it was just laying in the water. The only thing I could think about was probably if they were unloading from the boat to get it to the carriages or whatever, you know, to get their stuff off. So there's things like that I could probably talk to you about for hours, or until my voice runs out. But you know, there's so much probably that I've left out that you know, that's why I'll just keep it open for questions. If you come up with something, I'll try to answer it the best way I can.
Well,
3 minutes? You wanna? I can do it just as people come up if you want.
did I see a hand?
No.
Okay.
Brent?
Yeah, well, I wanted to thank you so much, Jim. That was an excellent presentation.